Inside the 18, I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know him as the professor, the one and only Pro GK Academy, Omar Zini. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? What's up? Good to be here.
I love the haircut, man. I like
Thank you.
You're going very hipstery. You got the whole sides shaved and everything going on.
You know, the listeners are not going to be able to see it, but the viewers, the lucky 10 viewers on Facebook are going to be very happy.
They're going to be very excited. I like the way that you're turning your head back and forth like that. So that is that is a solid look. I did not just recently get a haircut, so I'm wearing a hat right now. I didn't have a hat on earlier. I looked at myself in the reflection from the Zoom and I was like, ugh. Yeah, that's not happening. We're not doing that. We don't want to show that kind of that loss of hair in the front. So I'm going to put the hat back on here, but that's totally cool because we got another guy with a hat on right now because he's growing his hair out right now. We got the one and only USL1 2019 Goalkeeper of the Year. I'm sure it still sounds awesome to say that, right, Dallas?
Yeah, it was an awesome achievement. Something that, as a guy who spent the first couple of years of his career sitting on the bench for a couple different clubs, to finally get the shot to be a starter and to claim an award like that is it was a testament to a lot of work. But the title of it sounds cool, but it was the 2019 Goalkeeper of the Year, and we're long past that. So. Yeah,
that voice that you guys are hearing right there, if you didn't already figure it out, is the one and only Dallas Jaye from Greenville Triumph. Dallas, man, this is awesome, man. I know, it's something. It's so funny because like when I reached out and I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I know we had talked about doing this like back in the fall after you won the award and everything like that. And let's just be honest, a lot's happened in the last year or so. So I'm glad we were able to reconnect and everything. And shout out to the one and only Nate Failing, because if it weren't for Nate Failing, we would have even connected. So.
Yeah, Nate was, as a young goalkeeper, you have, those couple goalkeeper coaches that really just build you. And for me, Nate was a guy who, I'm talking 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, those prime years where you're just learning technique and stuff like that. Nate was the guy. So a lot of credit to him, and finding out you guys were such close buddies was a funny thing for me.
It's funny. Omar and I, we've talked about this, just how small the goalkeeping world is, right? Like literally like 1 degree of separation, basically, from like, the biggest Ederson to like Dallas Jaye. Like you'll find a connection somehow, Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm from the Bay Area in California, and just within the East Bay, which is, I'm talking 2 or 3 cities, San Ramon, Danville, Walnut Creek, Concord. You had David Bingham, JT Marcinkowski, Alex Mangels, who's with Chattanooga, Andre Rawls, who's with Colorado Rapids, I believe, myself, just a bunch of goalkeepers that grew up 10, 15, 20 minutes from each other and somehow are still all playing professional today, which is crazy. And that's just a testament to, the goalkeeping world and really just how small it is.
Dude, and that's that whole Cal North goalkeeping pipeline, right? And then and Nate Failing is part of that Tri-Valley pipeline right there, producing all those young aspiring goalkeepers. So Dallas, before we kind of get into today's topic, for some people out there might not be familiar with you and the league that you play in. I think a lot of people get very confused with USL Championship, USL1, USL2, and everything like that. Why don't you kind of break down, a little bit about, where you are right now, what the league is, what the level's like, the performances with the Guam national team, all of that.
Yeah. So currently with, like you said, Greenville Triumph in USL League 1, second year club in a second year league. So I started professionally in 2016 with FC Cincinnati when they were a USL club. At the time, it was just one level to USL. It wasn't Championship, League 1, League 2, which was formerly PDL. So started my career there. And to see USL kind of grow into what it's become over these past, this is my 5th professional year, these past 5 years has been pretty incredible. I think, the direction it's going, I know a lot of soccer fans call for the promotion relegation in the US pyramid, but whether MLS can be a part of that, who knows? But I think you're starting to see it shape out in USL with the championship, with League 1, with League 2, obviously still being technically semi-professional, amateur, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's been incredible to grow as a player, to be in a league that's growing, to see it go from I couldn't tell you how many clubs my first year to almost 60 across the USL now between the two leagues. And you know, my stops in Cincinnati, Phoenix Rising, and now in Greenville has been an interesting path. Come across a lot of great guys, a lot of great goalkeeping groups, but settled in here in Greenville and really enjoying the league, the level of the league, the standard, the club that I'm at. And I think it shows in some of the performances I've been able to have individually. Credit to the performances our team has had, and the guys I get to work with every day. So it's been a whirlwind the last couple of years, and I think especially the last couple months for everyone, just in life, but also in the game of football. So yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, you know, one of the things that Omar and I, you know, have discussed recently is that, you know, there's a lot of people out there who don't recognize that there's so many competitive levels in the United States to play at the professional level. Omar, I mean, I know with your channel, you get kids who constantly contact you and say, "Oh, can you get me a trial here? You know, can I play here or whatever?" And they're not even familiar with the level. And you know, and I think one thing that you've tried to do with your channel is you've tried to expose, you know, young goalkeepers to people such as Dallas, you know, who are playing at such a competitive level and showcasing that, you know, these are the type of opportunities that these kids should be striving for.
Yeah, I mean, even yesterday, posting a video of Matt Turner from New England Revolution, and all the comments were super negative. I mean, a good amount of them were positive, but a lot of people were just like, this is MLS level. The strikers aren't very good. This goalkeeper's trash is in the MLS. And a lot of these kids that are commenting would be lucky if they made it to the MLS, let alone USL League 1, League 2, the championship at USL. You know, so a lot of these kids, I think, are just either misinformed or just trolls. They don't understand that the level of these guys at, they're, you know, high level professionals. And I'm sure Dallas can tell you it's a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of these kids don't understand that. And they think, I mean, like we always say, shoot for the stars, man. Like if you can do that, 100% do what you got to do. But in reality, you kind of have to come back to reality that a lot of the stuff that you do, getting to Dallas's position, is not easy. And very, very few people, less than like 2-3% of people actually make it that far. So that's what I'm trying to do with the channel, is just show people that, you know, if you go to a college game, Division 1, 2, or 3, go watch the warm up. You can learn a lot from those goalkeepers, and you probably understand that that's the level you're probably going to be either, you know, starting at, and then eventually either probably that's like the final place you're going to play. But understanding that those guys have so much more to offer, and I think that's what I want to do with the channel, is show people that they're more alike than you guys are more alike than you think. And this is just step one into the preparation that if you want to go to the MLS or Premier League, you know, if that's is in the cards for you.
Yeah. So, you know, Dallas, before we kind of get into today's topic, I kind of want to bring up a little bit, because I think a lot of people might wonder, like, Guam, what? How did that all happen? So, you know, how did you end up with the is it the Guamese national Guamane? How do you pronounce it?
Guam national team's fine. The actual moniker of the team is the Matau. Like a lot of national teams, they have that nickname. For us, it's the Matau, which is the you know, the essentially the highest of the hierarchy for the natives. But for me, it started San Diego Surf Cup, walking around, you know, 14, 15-year-old kid with my parents. My mom's whole side of the family's from Guam, and they had actually sent a team to compete in the tournament. So she had seen it on the schedule. She saw, you know, Guam. She wanted to go over, chat with some people on the sideline. It's such a small island and such a small population that you're going to find family connections, friend connections. So just spending some time with some of the parents there on the sideline, we created a couple contacts that you fast forward less than a year later, I was suiting up with their under 19 national team in a tournament in China. I'm 16 years old. Didn't really know much about it, had never been to Guam up to that point. My mom had actually never been to the island. She's one of 6. The 4 oldest were born there. Her and her younger brother were born in the mainland. So it was cool for me to use soccer as that kind of mechanism to have her see, you know, her home country for the first time. And played with their under 19s. Fast forward to 2012 when we got a new head coach that really wanted to revamp the national team program. Called me in, called in a group of guys from outside of the local player pool, guys like, Ryan Guy, who was with New England Revolution at the time, AJ De La Garza, who was with LA Galaxy at the time, now with Inter Miami, and a number of guys who were across MLS, USL, and for the last 8 years, has been an incredible experience getting to play international football. It's FIFA World Cup qualifiers and Asian Confederation tournaments, things like that. And right now we're going through a period of some of those older, more experienced players, the Ryan Guys, the AJ De La Garzas, are phasing out, and we have a new pool of younger players coming through. And we're always going to have a small player pool. It's the nature of what we deal with, but you got a culture and a group of guys who it's just embedded them to never back down from a challenge. I mean, we'll trot into a stadium with 50,000 people going up against the Chinese national team and have intentions to win the game. Whether people think that's possible, who knows? But we've definitely taken our lumps. We're the kind of the minnows of Asia, but there's never a game that we back down from, and getting to be a part of that these last couple of years has been pretty incredible. And hopefully, fingers crossed, 2021, there's going to be some more games. We had a lot of games put on hold this year. So hopefully get some more opportunities next year.
Omar, want to go to Guam? Let's do it. Let's
Man, that's
you'll be sitting on a beach and having a nice drink and come and watch a game.
No, I'm definitely down, man. Again, that's the beauty of this whole thing with Mike and I have been doing with the podcast and stuff, is that we just meet people from all over the world, and now we have reasons to travel different places.
Yeah,
absolutely.
We can just use it as an excuse. It's like, this is the business trip. This is absolutely a business trip whatsoever.
Expensive. Yeah.
So let's get into today's topic, guys. Today's topic is, and one of the reasons, Dallas, I wanted to have you on with this is is you're really good at this. You're really good at being able to handle. A lot of goalkeepers get rattled when they have an obstructed view. When they lose sight of the ball, the flight of the ball, they start leaning one way. They can't make those adjustments, all that sort of stuff. Kind of in your words, maybe for some of the parents out there who might be listening, who may not be familiar with our goalkeeping terminology, what do we mean by an obstructed view?
For me, when I think of the phrase obstructed view, I'm thinking anytime the ball itself, your sight of the ball itself is gone. And I think it happens way more than people realize in a match. Anytime you have the ball, the opponent has the ball 20, 30 yards from your own goal, they're moving it, they're passing it. You got defenders, trying to cover spaces. There's so much action going on that the ball is going to disappear and it can be, brief, less than a second at a time. But we're talking margins. That's goalkeeping, right? It's those little moments that can make all the difference. So for me, when I think obstructed view, it's just those moments when the ball itself disappears. And then it becomes context. It becomes experience, anticipation of where the ball may end up when it does come back into view. Luckily, these things happen pretty fast, so you can adjust as it goes. But it's definitely a difficult thing to deal with as a goalkeeper. I've dealt with it a fair amount actually this season. We're only 8 games in, and there's been a couple situations where I've been on the better side of it and able to pull off a save, and there's been an occasion or two where it's ended up in the back of the net. So it's whatever level you're playing at, whether you're youth keeper, high school, college, or professional, it's gonna happen. There'll be days when you're on it, and there're gonna be days where you're unfortunately picking it out of the back of the net, but that's just part of it.
Yeah. Omar, one thing I think a lot of kids, and I think you've tried to stress this to them, especially when you start coaching at the college level, is that the level of separation becomes so much smaller at the college level that they have to deal with losing that side of the ball. How difficult is that for a young freshman coming into college to understand that and being able to handle that speed?
I'll be honest with you. I think when you step into any program as a freshman, I think the number one thing for you is to try to impress the goalkeeper coach, obviously the head coach, but the goalkeeper coach in your unit is to try and stand out. And I think a lot of those kids, they kind of come in with this kind of preconceived idea that they have to hold everything. And that's the way they're going to separate themselves, is by showing quality on the ball. And I think a lot of times, I think Dallas can attest to this as well. I started holding onto the ball less and less as I got older, but I started steering the ball out of danger and becoming more proficient with, steering the ball out of danger. I think 2011, we had the Jabulani. So that year, I mean, my punts and my goal kicks can go 70 yards, but you know, the shots that were coming up against me, they were dipping last second. And then you add a little bit of an obstructed view, that's going to be very difficult to hold on to the ball. And I think, you know, it gets to a point where you start understanding as you get higher in levels, you need to be able to deal with different scenarios, and you need to have different tools in your toolbox. So yes, you start up coming in trying to hold everything, but I think pairing the ball with an obstructed view is also a skill that you should acquire. And us as goalkeeper coaches, we should encourage that, because again, at the end of the day, you're just trying to keep the ball out of the net, and if you keep the ball out of the net and then put the ball in favorable positions for rebounds, I think that's the key right there.
Dude, I love the fact that you just brought that up, and I think Dallas, you'll attest to this too. Is that the speed is too fast to be able to try to contain that ball when you've got an obstructed view, because when there's obviously the timing's going to be slightly off. So by the time the ball gets to you, you're not going to be able to get that clean hold on it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Omar spot on there. And one of the things I think is really important, especially with, there'll be times where the view is obstructed, but it's run of play and it's just about finding it again. But then there's the situations where it is an obstructed view and the ball is being struck on goal. So you're not actually seeing the ball getting hit. And that almost is a whole different animal. But in those situations, it's relying on your training. It's anticipating, okay, there could be a shot in this moment. Let me get myself set. I think most goalkeepers, the preconceived notion is, you know, get to your spot, set. When the ball's moving around the 18, you're almost setting and unsetting multiple times over. You're anticipating these shots that may happen at any moment. So when the ball's obstructed, you're doing the same thing. I mean, and I just had a situation this past week. We're playing New England Revolution away, 1-0 loss. The goal itself was off the counterattack. I wish we could pull up the clip and do all the visuals right now, because I'd love to talk through it. But essentially, the ball gets cut back to the top of the 18. A defender steps to block it. As he steps to block it, the view for me becomes obstructed. But in that situation, I know he's probably going to be. He didn't have passing options. The ball was weighted. The visual cue said he's going to step up and just strike this first time. He does that. I almost set too early, anticipating that, and ended up finding myself almost diving over the ball. Ball ended up in the back of the net. 1-0, first loss of the season. So it was a moment for a lot of reflection, because it was funny. We were discussing this last week about trying to do the podcast last week, and when you brought up obstructed view, I was like, he watched my game on Wednesday. That's what he was talking about. Because it happened. These things happen in games all the time. So it's a topic I don't think gets discussed enough. In some goalkeeper circles, it may not even get worked on enough. I'm fortunate here at Greenville Triumph. Goalkeeper coach Alex Blackburn likes to cover the spectrum when it comes to situations. Obstructed view is a big one. We use the air toms or the mannequins to help with that. And you're not going to do it in a game if you don't train it. It's simple as that. So it's something that needs to be worked on.
Jesus. Sorry about that. So Omar just sent me something. He sent me something that may or may not be useful right here, and that is the clips of the New England Revolution game. Do you know what time period this is at?
2 minutes and 2 seconds, Mike.
2 minutes and 2 seconds?
Yeah, if that's the highlight video, it'll be right around that mark.
Okay. So 2 minutes and 2 seconds of the highlight reel, or okay.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm gonna move to
maybe like
there.
Maybe go to 145.
Okay, go 145. All right.
Yeah.
So let me move it to 145 right here. Everyone's like, dude, what is this guy doing right now? All right, I am going to hold on. I've got it. Okay, I'm gonna try to share screen here. All right. Okay.
I love that we can do this. This is awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. All right. Can everybody see this right here?
Perfect.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So is this the play we're talking about?
Yes. So we get undone on the counter. They get numbers forward. We recovered relatively well, to be honest. Gets cut back to the top of the 18. Our defender, you see him in the number 4 jersey, steps to make a block, doesn't put a block on it. And as he's doing that, I lose sight of the ball. So I don't see the ball actually struck. But like I said before, the context of the situation was telling me he's going to try to hit this first time.
Okay, so let's see that again. So right here.
Yes. So right as the ball was struck is the second it went away. I knew where it was going. I knew there was a guy running up to it. And unfortunately with this view, you can't see what I'm doing. You can't see me setting. I'm almost set with my feet in the ground too early, where I didn't give myself a real push. I don't think he strikes the, puts the ball in the goal, puts the ball in frame, does well with that. Doesn't pick out the corner, doesn't put, particularly a lot of pace on it. So for me, it was a very savable shot, in my opinion. But the stuff leading up to it, the second the ball disappeared, I was almost set too early. And you can see my dive is more of a fall as opposed to stepping and really pushing myself through it.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead, Omar.
No, I worked on cutbacks today with my keepers, and one thing I started noticing is that once they come across the goal, sometimes we can move off the turn, keeping ourselves at a good level, so we're in a neutral position, not too low, not too high. Do you feel like as that ball came across and it was struck, because you were trying to find the ball with the obstructed view, you kind of rose yourself up a little bit, and that kind of like counterbalance of shooting yourself up and having to go back to the ground, was that kind of causing a delay?
That may have been the case. It's honestly not even something I thought about. And that's a great point to bring up, because I think when the view does become obstructed, a lot of keepers will tend to either try to duck themselves down to try to see it through legs, or like you said, even raise yourself up a little bit and try to lean to find it. Which, as you know, as a goalkeeper, the second your balance is off one way or another, you're setting yourself up for failure in a lot of ways. In that situation, it's hard for me to even remember if I was maybe a little higher than I wanted to be in search of the ball. But that's a great way to bring up the point that, because when you work with mannequins and stuff like that in training, a lot of them have slits that you can see through, and keepers will duck down, they'll look around, they'll try to find the ball as much as they can, which is good. If you can get eyes on the ball, that's exactly what you want to do, but you don't want to do it to a point where you're taking yourself out of position or leaning one way or another.
Dallas, I got a question for you here, because I think here's one of the problems that I think I see in the youth game a lot, is that kids will say, I couldn't see, I had an obstructed view, but in reality, their view wasn't obstructed. They panicked in the moment, and because of that, they lost the flight of the ball, because there was some type of movement that happened in front of them. So kind of explain like the signs that your view is truly obstructed versus there's just movement that you have to deal with in front of you.
That's a good question. I mean, especially at the level that I'm playing at now, and when I was in college, the biggest transition for players is the speed of play. For goalkeepers, for any player, when you're going from one level to the next. So I think at the level that I'm at now, the ball moves so quickly that the obstruction of view happens in split seconds. And I think it's rare for a situation to really say, just because the view is obstructed, you're dead in the water. I think as a keeper, usually the only situations you're really dead in the water is if it gets deflected. You start moving to a shot, it gets deflected, and it's going the other way, and you're helpless. I think even with an obstructed view, there's, Omar used the phrase tools in your toolkit. There are tools with obstructed view that you still give yourself a chance to make a save. And I think that's something younger goalkeepers and kids, obviously, you don't want to point the finger at yourself when you give up a goal. And I think that's harder for kids to do. I think I couldn't see it. The obstructed view is a good way to bail yourself out when you're younger. But that ownership, that accountability, when a goal does get scored, our goalkeeper coach, Alex Blackburn, I mentioned once, but he likes to use the phrase, don't find a way out, find a way in. And by that, he means find a way to make it your fault. If you really want to improve and grow as a goalkeeper, yes, there's so many things that lead up to a goal. Defenders didn't do this, or somebody didn't track a man, but find a way where you're saying, okay, this might've been my fault. How could I have avoided that situation? And I like that mentality. I think that's something that, I would have loved to probably have a bit more when I was younger, because it is easy to point the finger or point to situations like we're saying, oh, I couldn't see the ball and that's it. I didn't have a chance.
So let's pull this up right now. This is one where you had an obstructed view and you came up with a great save on it. So let's go this direction instead with it right here. Walk us through this right here, Dallas. So this is 85th minute. This is from last season, I believe, or is this season right here?
This Fort Lauderdale. This would have been this season. This was just maybe 2 weeks ago.
Okay, so I think what happens here is there's a layoff. Yep. And then a bender across as one of, see, so now your players are coming in at this ball right here. So as they're coming in, that's where you lose sight of the ball right there,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yeah, and it's an interesting thing too, because you want your defenders to, when they see a shot's about to happen, when they see a situation where a fire needs to be put out, you want you to see your defenders converge on the ball and try to make a play. But in this situation, yeah. So obstructed view. It was actually. I saw the ball struck. It goes across a defender, so then I lose sight of it, and then it comes back into sight. So a little bit different of the situations we're talking about where you don't see the ball actually struck. And for this one, able to kind of just keep my balance until it comes back into sight, have an idea of where it's going. And it's what Omar said earlier. It's not about catching it in a lot of these situations. It's, can I steer it in the right area? This goes out for a corner, I believe. Yeah. But job's done there. Fire's put out. Let's get ready for the corner kick.
Mike, I think.
Go ahead, Omar.
No, so yesterday, I posted that it was like a 1v1, not so much of a breakdown, but it was just showing people like Matt Turner from Revolution, like how still he is and how composed he is in certain situations. And somebody commented, look at his head. It's completely still every time he receives a 1v1 or receives a shot. And I usually say, composure is just stability. But I always bring up too as well, like when you try and make somebody flinch, what shoots back? Normally the head. And when the head goes back, you lose control of everything else. So again, if you watch this highlight from the top, like Dallas said, I think because it was from far away, probably like 25 yards away, I think we have a little bit more composure because we realize we may have more time to see it. You know what I mean? So I think
now you
if you
lost
look
it.
at it. Oh,
yeah. No, I can hear it. No. Yeah. Go ahead.
If you see Dallas, just watch Dallas's head. Just let it play out all the way, Mike. You just see how still he is. And by that, he doesn't move at all. So now he can go straight to the ball versus having any counter movement and having to I guess, play tug of war with himself. So I think that's the beautiful part about this when you rewatch these clips is a lot of people look for the technique and look for all this stuff. But the only reason why the technique is actually useful is because the way he sets himself up allows him to use the technique properly.
I love this right here. And Dallas, I think it's a really good testament. And we talked about this actually in regards to what was the topic on Monday that we did with Emily Dolan from Real Betis, Omar? We were discussing
it's movement across goal.
Movement, tracking the ball under pressure. And we also brought up I brought up the fact about the head tilt and how important it is that it's just a slight adjustment of the body as opposed to and Dallas, I don't know how you feel about this, but I've noticed a lot of youth keepers, it's either this or this. There's no gray area. There's no slight adjustments. They think you say, move your head, they'll twist all the way. You say, stay still, and they'll be completely still. Kind of break down, how important at your level it is that you just make those little adjustments. And based on breaking down your film, you will start understanding those slight adjustments.
Yeah. And I said it before, you're talking about margins in goalkeeping. So it's the slightest movements, the slightest adjustments that can make all the difference. Other goalkeeper with our team, Paul Christensen's coming out of Atlanta United. He's been there the last 2 years with their second team. Has trained and played with their first team as well. And we had a situation earlier in the year where we were discussing getting a ball back from a center back, whatever it may be, and playing a one-touch ball out to either the other center back, the fullback. And for him, he was almost taught, I believe in Atlanta, a lot of goalkeepers I'm going to turn, check. Okay, where the ball's coming back to me, as it's coming back, I'm going to turn, check where I want to pass it, and then play it. For him, they even broke it down to just moving your eyes. So I don't know if you can see it, but it was just a glance back. And for me, that was
Scooby-Doo eyes like that.
Exactly. For me, that was profound. I'm like, you're simplifying what is already seems to be a bit of a simple movement. You're breaking it down even more to keep yourself even more balanced, even more even keel. And it's what Omar is saying. You whatever you want to call it, equilibrium. The more under control you are, whether you're under pressure, whether you're not under pressure, whatever it may be, is going to give you that much more success. And in that clip from the Fort Lauderdale game that you just showed, I hadn't even watched it to that extent where I saw just how still my head was. And that was a great thing to point out. I like seeing that because that's just balance. That's being set. That's getting your spot, get set, and you're going to give yourself a chance to make a save.
That's why Omar's known as the professor. So.
When you watch enough footage, you start realizing that, like, from your own thoughts and other people's thoughts, they see things that you may not be able to see. And I think that's something that I've been really trying to get on with my goalkeepers all the time, is understanding that when, like we talked about last podcast with Emily, when everything hits the fan and we all, when things go bad, you need to have a foundation to fall back on, so that there's always a baseline where if things are going extremely well, you bring yourself back to level. Things are going really, really bad, you bring yourself back to levels. There's, good and bad things happen. So I think when it comes to this situation right here, for the most part, I think one of the most important foundations to any save or any action is, like we talk about, the head, like equilibrium, keeping yourself still. And I think that is something that a lot of goalkeepers, if they make a mistake, or if they're watching their own footage, just look at your head. Just see what happens to your head when that ball gets served in. Are you automatically fidgeting and going right away at something, or did you pause for a second, assess the danger, and then make your movement right after that? And we talk about professional goalkeepers. Some goalkeepers I've seen, I think it was Neuer in the 2010 World Cup, when he kind of broke onto the scene nationally or internationally. During the World Cup, he was catching balls that I've never seen a goalkeeper catch before. And I remember thinking, at that level, with those balls that we're using, this guy is at a different level. Yeah, forget the sweeper keeper stuff, but he's holding on to balls that other goalkeepers have parried. And I was like, that's just different level goalkeeping. And again, maybe strong forearm, strong wrist, or just his eyes are just seeing things at a much slower rate than I've ever seen before. But the fact that you can go back and watch those, and if you see how still his body is and how still his head is, he's inviting it, because he knows he's going to use a technique and go straight to the ball, versus some keepers where they're trying to move their head and trying to find everything, versus just letting it come to them naturally. And I think that's the baseline all goalkeepers should have, is as that ball comes in, or as any cross comes in, or 1v1 situation, be still for a second and then make your decision, because once you're still, you can actually assess the danger.
Yeah. Does that one thing in regards to the stillness, Omar, and I want to ask Dallas about this, because I think I'll be straight up honest with you. Like, I can be very emotional when I play, and my emotions can kind of, Dallas, when you were talking about the peering or the looking underneath, I think a lot of that is an emotional panic, a panic attack in my part when I'm playing, at least, or at least I've seen with youth keepers, where like, oh no, what am I going to do now? Now I got to figure it out. And by then it's too late. So kind of, is there like any advice you would give, maybe like some of these like younger kids who like are having issues with like letting their emotions get the best of them in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I do a little bit of goalkeeper training with some younger goalkeepers. So yeah, I see a bit of what you're talking about, especially with the younger kids. It's hard to keep the emotions in check, for better and for worse. You get too high after a big save and think you've done your job and you can hang out for a little bit. It's keeping the highs low and the lows high, keeping that even keel. But as far as maintaining emotion, I think it's, and I said it before, I forget exactly what I said it to, but it's something you learn in practice and training. You can't, if you're that one who always loses their lid in training and finds yourself getting emotional and getting frustrated, you can't expect to go into games and be calm, cool, and collected. So it's a habit. It's just like anything in goalkeeping and pretty much anything in life. It's a trained habit that, and we all have days. To be honest with you, I had a day yesterday. It didn't seem like things were working out. I got frustrated. And for me, when I get frustrated, I tend to get quiet. And that's the last thing you want to do as a goalkeeper. You can control your communication. You can control your attitude. Sometimes you can't control if the ball's going to go in the back of the net or not. So for me, that's something I work on. I'm a professional goalkeeper, and I still have to deal with and handle emotions as the game comes. But not letting that bleed into the next training. So yesterday I had a day, but today's a new day. And what can I fix from what I noticed about myself yesterday? So I think it's important for younger goalkeepers and any goalkeeper to reflect after a session, reflect on the good, reflect on the bad, make the adjustments you need to make, and not let training sessions bleed into each other.
Yeah. And Mike,
go.
No, I just want to, that's such a great point that Dallas just made. And I think that's the biggest thing in terms of the youth development. I think developing the psychological side of the game is when you are going through situations like Dallas said, he went through a rough session yesterday, having the presence of mind, understanding that that's not who you are on a day-to-day basis, and having confidence that, okay, that's not me, but if this situation does arise again, and now that I'm aware of it, what can I personally do to build myself back up so I don't get quiet or I don't lose my confidence. And I think you have to go through these situations enough times, and us coaches as well, we need to let our goalkeepers in training sessions fail as much as they possibly can so they can find solutions. The last thing you want to do is have someone face adversity in a game and not know how to come back from it. And now we're losing 2-3-0 instead of maybe he made that 1 or 2 big saves when we're down 1-0 after their mistake, and we come back, we score a goal, and then maybe after that we're going to overtime or something like that. So I think it's just those marginal gains, but it's about being aware of who you are as a goalkeeper. And then from there, like we do with our sessions, Mike, I always kind of allot certain times where there's something that could potentially go wrong in a situation right here. Let's say I have a goalkeeper who can't hit a volley or can't serve a ball. So I'm like, okay, most likely they're not going to be able to hit it off the ground, and I'm not going to get what I want from here. So let me move them to this position right here where they're going to serve off the ground and this shot can go anywhere, so I don't have to worry about accuracy. So now I understand there's a problem. I'm not freaking out about it, but I'm preparing myself for a solution if that situation does arise, or if I can avoid it completely. So I think, Dallas, you're saying such like profound stuff without you even knowing. Maybe you do know it, but just understanding that when you're aware of situations that you could potentially get into, and then finding solutions off the field so that when you're presented with those, I guess, adversities, you're able to fight back and not, I guess, get quiet or lose your confidence.
Yeah, and to be honest, I'm still learning it as I go. So that's the best part about it.
Yeah.
We have a question in the comment section here. This is from a young man. His name is Nathan Failing, and Nathan wants to know, how often does Dallas watch video of training sessions of himself, and also game footage, and what in your opinion is more important?
That's a great question. Well done, Nate. We are fortunate that in the training piece can be hard because not everyone has the access or the resources to film every training session and break down film. We're fortunate. We do it off an iPhone at Greenville Triumph, and we upload it straight to YouTube, and it's not cut or anything, but you're able to go through it and watch stuff back. And we do that at least 2 to 3 times a week, as much as we can, especially when we're working on topics that we feel are particularly, I don't want to say important, nothing's really more important than the other, but maybe something that's an area of an improvement, or something we see for the upcoming match on the weekend where the opponent tends to do this. So let's film this session and see where we're kind of at. So I'd say I probably watch more training film because we train every day. You're only playing matches once a week. But once the match happens and you get that film, it becomes a very, very much of a nitpicking practice. We're 8 games into the season. We've had 5 clean sheets. So you're going back and watching a game. Okay, we didn't give up a goal in 5 of these games. How much is there to watch? But we'll still find ways where they very well should have scored here, or we could have done better here. So we'll really break them down. And it's like what I said before with Alex Blackburn. It's find a way to make it your fault. Don't find a way out, find a way in. So we'll really break stuff down and get into the nitty gritty of it, if you will. And I think, from a personal standpoint, you watch it as a goalkeeper, and then when you watch film as a team, it can create some uncomfortable conversations, but that's the only way you're going to grow as a team. Your level of progress and growth will come from the ability, the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're able and willing to have. So I think, that's where, and I hate to see it, and it does happen. You'll watch film and guys will get defensive. You don't want to be called out. You don't want to see your mistakes over and over and over again. Usually in the moment, you made a mistake. In the New England Revolution game this past week, I knew that the second it went by me, that was the ball I could have saved. You don't need anyone else to tell you, but you need to go back and go over those moments so you don't let them happen again.
By the way, I love the fact that you were like, "Oh, dude, this dude just trolled me." When it was like, "Hey, let's do a topic of obstructed views." He's like, "He just watched this game. This dude's trolling me right now." No, I love the humility though, Dallas, and the fact that you wanted us to play that clip here on the show rather than just like, "Here's how fantastic I am," that sort of thing. I think that showcases yourself as a goalkeeper, that you want to use every avenue to keep learning and keep growing, whether you're, being presented on a show or whether, you're in a film session, at your club or watching at home. I think that is so important and vital. And I want to go into set pieces real quick. And I want to watch a little bit of film of you in a set piece situation where you did lose sight of the ball too. But before we do that, Omar, I kind of want to talk to you in regards to the defensive aspect, because the thing is that you break down a lot of film for young goalkeepers. And I know that you deal with this constantly. how do you get them to understand what they should be looking at and what they should be gaining from their film rather than what they're trying to do with the film, which is trying to impress you?
I mean, yeah, sometimes people will send me their footage in terms of game footage. At the same time, they'll send me their training footage. And when it comes to the training footage, I always ask the context. Like, okay, what was the context of this session? Were you trying to work on technical stuff? Or are you trying to apply a newly found technique into a tactical session? Like, what is it, so that I can actually break it down, so that I'm not, I had some kids who were trying more of a wide stance, and I'm like, okay, this looks a little bit awkward. So why does it look awkward? Well, I was trying a new wider stance and I wanted to see if it worked. Okay, great. Now I understand. That's the context, the viewpoint that I'm seeing it. And I think a lot of kids, whether it's their goalkeeper coaches, their head coaches, no one really gives them the context a lot of times into their sessions. So they kind of go into it not understanding that this is a session that's probably going to make them feel uncomfortable, or something they've never seen before, so that they need to give themselves a little bit of a break. So I think that's what I give the most advice on, is understand the context of what the session, either you're filming or the session you're about to be in, so that you have an understanding of how critical you can be on yourself. And I think after you have that, then you can understand, again, what are the little marginal gains that you can make. Okay, you know what? On that one, it was a little too close to me. Maybe I should have swept my feet and, dug the ball out. Okay, that next ball came a little bit closer. Maybe I could have, shifted my feet and grabbed that ball. So being critical, but understanding the context of the critique. But yeah, and game footage as well. I try to tell them to give me the reasons why they made those decisions. Kind of like what Dallas was saying off of, that cutback situation. Obviously he understood that he probably could have done better, but at the same time, he was willing to have those questions, or have himself critique it, so that it wouldn't happen again. And he can ask those questions, why? And a lot of kids, they ask the very simple questions. What could I have done better? Well, how about you answer the question, and then I'll guide you with guided discovery, but you need to tell me what you saw, because if I'm not going to be out there every single game. So if you go through a mistake and you got to figure out what you did wrong, you're not going to have me there. So figure it out on your own. Tell me what you see, and I'll help you out. I think that's the biggest thing I can tell young kids.
Yeah, that's something that I've been really, really big on, post the quarantine is, and, obviously there's been a lot of discussion in the goalkeeping community in regards to creating thinking goalkeepers and preventative goalkeepers and all that sort of thing. And I've started recognizing how many times I do have kids say to me, what should I have done there? And I just realized that that's enabling them, because that means that I'm allowing them to not have to put the emphasis on learning themselves. Rather, they want me to tell them. But the thing is, it's not really going to resonate with you unless you really, I mean, this is something that Nate Failing taught me, years ago. He says, it's that his whole thing, and Dallas, I'm glad that you do train goalkeepers, because his whole thing, he always told me back in the day, is like, I want to train goalkeepers to the point where they understand how to be independent rather than dependent on a goalkeeper coach.
Yeah, and it's what Omar's saying. It's what you're saying. And I can tell you firsthand, when I was training with Nate and I'm a young kid, you're not even close to understanding these sorts of things, and the need and the ability to come to these answers yourself. Look within first, try to figure out, and the best part is, if you do have someone like an Omar or someone like a goalkeeper coach that you can really turn to and have them help guide you, that's the next best thing, because not everyone has that. There, in any profession, there's good and bad. There's bad goalkeeper trainers out there who are probably giving poor advice. So it's a learned thing. I think it's something that comes with age, with experience, with playing at different levels. But it's the ability to look within, to be hard on yourself, but don't be too hard on yourself, because you can go down some rabbit holes that way. And like anything in life, it's balance. It's balance of the good and the bad. So I think, it's funny, because I could talk about it all day, but there's no right answer. There's no, this is the best way to do it. And I think for everyone, that's what it's about. It's self-discovery. It's figuring it out, how it works for you.
Yeah.
I
want to go ahead, Omar.
No, I just want to make one last point that I was thinking about. And I think it's again, I said on the last podcast, it's about perspective. And when you think about a process, I think a lot of people don't understand the patience aspect And for example, when I have taken a long time off the gym, and I know in my head now, early on, I'd be like, oh man, why am I so sore? Oh my God, you know what? Maybe this lifting thing is not for me. I got a training the next day. I don't want to go to my
This
training
lifting
sore.
thing is not for me. That's
It's
a
not
good
for me.
Speaking of finding excuses right there. Yeah, you know, this
No,
whole
but
weight training thing, we don't need to do this anymore.
no, but then I started realizing as I got older and was more educated about it, and seeing my teammates who hadn't worked out, and like Alex Sarah, as Dallas's goalkeeper coach says, you know, find a way in, not a way out. So I said, okay, like why are my teammates? Why are they not sore? Why do they continuously work out, and why are they not plateauing like I was? Game 12 out of 20 in college. Why am I plateauing and they're still rising? Their bodies are healthy. So I started thinking about it, and I said, okay, you know what? Maybe because these guys go to the gym every single day, their bodies are used to it. So then I started shifting my perspective on things, and I started realizing, okay, if I understand that first week in the gym is going to destroy my legs, destroy my body, but at the same time, I know with the context that first week's going to be hell, but I know week 2, 3, 4, and 5 are going to be a little bit smoother because I went through hell. Then it's going to be, I personally would be like, you know what, I'm way more up for the challenge than I probably would have been. And now I understand there's a process, there's a plan in place. And again, when it comes to breaking down film, or as Dallas says, it's early in the season right now, where he could probably be down in the dumps because of that I guess, not a mistake, but the goal that you probably could have saved. But I think Dallas has been around long enough, and he understands that there's a process to it. So he takes that watching of the film and kind of critiquing himself with the context of, I can either decide to throw in the towel that it's over, or I can really man up and I can critique myself and understand that it's a process, and I need to be patient so that games, 10 through 30 are excellent and I leave a good taste in everybody's mouth, versus now where, you know what, I've kind of hit a wall, hit some adversity. It's not worth it. I'm done. Whatever happens from this point on. That's kind of like the analogy I like to give to people, is that when you have the perspective and a realistic perspective that things aren't going to be great the first few times around, but you're willing to kind of go through that, I keep saying the word adversity, but go through that adversity, you're going to come off the other side a lot better off.
Yeah. Now, speaking of dealing with adversity, and, Dallas, you've been talking about, balance and everything, and poise and everything like that. I want to show this free kick because you had balance and poise in this moment against your rivals, the Richmond Kickers. So this is in the 71st minute, I believe, in this game right here. Look at that scoreline. Look at Greenville just pulling it all off right here. Walk us through this one right here, first off.
You screen sharing?
Oh, yeah. Oh, did I not screen share it? Oh, boy. Yeah, that's probably why you guys can't see it. So let me screen share it first. Otherwise, I'll just be watching it myself. All right. So now you can see it right here. This is in the 71st minute. Greenville, Richmond. Ball goes over the wall. You play it out of danger. We'll do it in real time first. Ball comes in. Boom. Great decision to steer that ball right there wide. Dallas, walk us through this one. Oh, look at that next recovery step right there. Just follow that ball all the way. Make sure.
Yeah, little follow through. Absolutely. No, so this situation, obviously on topic today with the obstructed view, set pieces, especially direct free kicks that are going to be shot on goal, are a great example of that. I decided to go with a 4-man wall here. We're looking at maybe 25, 26 yards out. And these situations are always interesting, especially with free kicks. I think context is huge. I think if that ball is, 18, 19, 20 yards out, it becomes a different situation because it's going to take a very special strike to get it up and down over the wall. So from this distance, one can anticipate, okay, he's probably going to go up and down. He's going to try to go over the wall and put it there. Now, we talk about the importance of film. Guy on the ball, I believe it's Riley Kraft, talented player. This was Richmond's first game of the season, so we don't, you don't really have proper film on him yet. Watching film on yourself is important, but also, as you rise in levels, watching film on the opponent is just as important. And we were able to see a few clips from a preseason game they had. Similar situation, same guy on the ball. So we had seen a bit of this, had discussions before the game. Hey, if they get a direct free kick and this guy's on the ball, anticipate that he may try to go up and down. He can strike it pretty well. So that was the idea going into this. Big credit to Alex Blackburn, who had done the scouting on all this and had gotten me that information. it's big. Obviously, you don't rely on that. It's not the end all be all. I'm not just going right away because I think he's going to go up and down, and then he ends up kicking it far post, and I'm out of position. But ball struck, lose sight as the wall. I don't know if we decided not to jump or jump. We got 3 up and 1 down there.
One was crouching, and then the other dudes were jumping. So.
Yeah. Big guys nonetheless. So that's a wall I'm pleased with. We got a couple 6-footers in there. But he strikes it well. He gets it up. Probably doesn't get down as much as he wants. But we talk about obstructed view. I see the ball hit. I lose sight of it once it's going over the wall, and it comes back into view as it goes over. And I think for any keeper, once you see it disappear at that wall, you're shuffling your feet and you're getting crossed as quickly as you can.
Right there.
And for me, that was the situation. Able to get into a good position where, to be honest, I think I had thought in that moment possibly catch here. I think I got myself behind it enough to maybe hold it, but it was in my opinion the right decision. You want to be safer than anything in that situation, and for me that was it. It was let's push it over the bar and get ready for the corner kick. But yeah, essentially that was it. And I thought about pulling the legs and maybe turning it into a full-on dive for the cameras, but stay on my feet and move on.
Yeah.
Mike, so I think so I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was the episode I did with Chris Sharp, and we're doing like his little off-season stuff, and I wanted just to kind of go film him and mic him up, and his session was essentially about creating depth to give yourself more time to see the ball through traffic. So I think a lot of times, if you watch Keylor Navas specifically, if you watch him, every time a shot's coming, he'll encroach more and more and more to minimize the distance between him and the striker. I think for him, he works on his angles, and it's Keylor Navas. He's sprawling all across the goal. Most athletic goalkeeper I've probably seen in a long time. He knows what he's doing. So I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but in his session, he was saying create some depth so that you can actually see the ball through traffic and the obstructed views. So then one of the goalkeepers, I think it was Andre Rawls actually, he it was recovering from the 6. He had 3 mannequins across the 6. You recover from the mannequin, you drop centrally, and then from there you see the ball through traffic. And there was a shot that I think Chris shot and hit the top corner and went in. And Andre asked Chris, and he said, "Chris, do I take a less favorable position and I can see the ball, or do I get into a good position where I can't really see the ball, but I know I have my angles covered?" And that was such a good question, I felt, because there's no reason to have depth and time without actually seeing the ball. And I want to talk about here where we're talking about the free kick that Dallas was talking about. I call it, for me at least, calculated anticipation, where they were training for Carlos Vela at the time. So Chris would get the ball from the right side, which is the goalkeeper's left, take a cut, touch inward and try to bend it far post. And in that position, ideally, if you're too far to the right, you're going to leave your near post exposed. But at the same time, Carlos Vela is probably going to try and bend that ball to the far post. So maybe try and stay a little bit closer to the near post where you can still see the ball. But at the same time, too, like with this free kick, like Dallas is saying, is like, when it goes around the defender and when it goes over the wall here, there's a little space that you're leaving open. You're almost baiting it. You're allowing it to happen so that you can still maintain eye contact with the ball. But once you go through that progression where, okay, it's not going to be hit my near post, it's going to go to the far post, snap through that checklist, that progression's done. Okay, now your body should be ready to shift and get to that far post ball. So right here, Dallas is respecting the free kick. It goes over the wall. His progression and checklist is checked. He goes to the next progression, which is ball coming over the wall. He deals with it the way he needs to deal with it. And I think that's one thing in terms of obstructed views. And I think it's a conversation, it's not a thing that's always happening, but conversation that needs to be had when you're in that situation is, do you find a less favorable angle where you can see the ball, but at the same time, know that if it does go to a certain angle, your body is already ready to shoot? Or do you stay more central, get your angles covered, you don't see the ball that well, and then you react? And I think some goalkeepers, based on their strengths, will tell you a different answer.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right answer to that. And it's funny you bring up that session. I think anyone who is interested in this topic should watch that session. We watched it before a training session we did here in Greenville, which was a similar topic, and we kind of worked our way through it, and it was very interesting stuff. So it was cool to see. But anyone who's interested in what we're talking about right now would get a lot of great insight from that one.
And what YouTube channel is that, Omar? That you can find that session on?
It's Pro GK Academy. You can look.
By the way, it's really funny because Nate actually trained both Andre and Dallas. So both Rawls and Dallas, trained with Nate as young goalkeepers. And Nate brought up the fact that they're two very different goalkeepers, and that you have to recognize the different strengths of the goalkeeper when you're working on this. So like, for instance, Dallas, like, when you're working with Alex, does he recognize that, based on your strengths, where you're going to your starting position is going to be, how you're going to shift is going to be very different than maybe a guy who's 6'3", 6'4".
Yeah. And that's one of the things I've loved working with Alex. We've had several goalkeepers the last 2 seasons now, and it's not one size fits all. He knows that each keeper has different strengths and different styles, and we've had many different styles just from the 5 or 6 goalkeepers we've had under Greenville Triumph the last 2 years. And he will help make adjustments within that style, but he doesn't. There are keeper coaches in systems that want this type of goalkeeper to play this type of way. It may work for some clubs, but I love the idea that you're free to kind of be the player you are. And the best part is you can take from the different styles of the guys around you. There's things when it came to closing down a breakaway or closing space to kind of create a shape or a blocking shape and spread, I found myself last year getting really wide, trying to be as big as possible. You see those images of Joe Hart or Manuel Neuer just getting massive, where Armando last year kept himself very composed, very tight. He almost tucks that knee in and takes away the 5-hole in the middle. And I found my style adjusting this year to a bit more that way, where I'm not trying to, obviously, depending on how far away I'm getting from the attacker. If I'm not able to really close that space, I'll try to get bigger. But as I get closer, it's okay. Let me tighten myself up. I'm close enough to make a shape and make him beat me. And that's just one example of taking from the guys around you the different styles of goalkeeping and adding it to your own game.
And I think I read a quote that said, before anybody can be a master, they have to allow themselves to be a fool. And I felt like that was such a unique quote in terms of like different styles of goalkeeping and trying out new techniques. The spread save is fashionable now, and a lot of people, see Neuer, see Joe Hart, see guys like Ter Stegen, all those guys know how to do it, but they don't understand that, one, it was a process. They got to be patient with it. But at the same time, too, those guys failed so many times. Like you said, Dallas, you learn from other people, but at the same time, like, you're fine tuning because you've either made a mistake or you really want to, improve it. And you understand there's a process. So again, young kids understand that you're going to look foolish every once in a while, but it's better to look foolish in training and allow that, I guess, perspective and perception of that to allow it to happen, so that once you actually get to the game, you've already broken it down in layers and you're actually able to use it and be effective with it in the game.
I want to bring this clip up right now here. Let me pull this guy up right here. If everyone, oh wait, I should probably share it first with everybody. Man, off my game today. What's going on here? All right. Can everyone see now? All right, cool.
Yes,
so
sir.
21st minute right here. Obviously, score's still 0-0, which means it's still anybody's game in regards to in regards to where you're thinking, from an emotional standpoint right here, Dallas. Let's play this right here. The ball's cut back inside, and it's a bender across. So again, another situation where players stepping to the ball, but there's still enough of the space. Can you see this ball, Dallas, all the way through?
Or
do you lose it right there?
In this situation, it was I saw it struck. It became obstructed view-wise for a brief moment as it goes around our big center back who's standing there in the middle, and then comes back into view. So there was a bit of that obstructed view. Obviously, seeing it struck, I knew the direction it was going. I'm able to set and not move my feet as much, but able to get a good power step into it to almost cover that back post. And then
obviously
able to get up quick enough and create a blocking shape to take away. I don't think I gave him a whole lot of space. I think if he finishes that follow-up, he's putting it in a corner or off a post. I think I do well to get up and create that. The great thing about that save for me was first game of the season. You're talking how many months since people have played games with COVID. We didn't get to start our season, so everyone was itching for this game, and to pull off a save like that in the first 20 minutes to start your season and get back into the swing of things was important. And for us on the day, it was important. We ended up getting a 2-0 victory. So I think the one piece I'll take from this, obviously we're talking about obstructed view, but another thing is that's a training habit of making a save, and whether you're playing live rebounds in training or not, is making a save and getting up and at least positioning for it. I think a lot of keepers now in the youth game, if you're not doing the live rebounds, they'll just make the save and take their time getting up. So it's just that's just habits right there. And that's if any, obviously 2 cool saves, fun to look at, but if anyone's going to take anything from this clip, it's that piece right there.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, because there was something that I wanted to express with that. And that is the whole thing, is that we have to make sure as goalkeeper coaches that when we work on something like an obstructed view, that we make it realistic to the game. You know, I see a lot of young goalkeeper coaches, and they do topics, but they're artificial. You know, they're working on concept rather than the reality of the game. And in my opinion, and obviously something that we've been trying to discuss a lot on this show, is to make sure that you're doing topics in the run of play rather than just doing topics for the sake of topics, you know, because then it starts becoming a guessing game, or players start developing patterns, and then all of a sudden they get thrown into the game. And again, as you know, the game's messy. The deflection might go another direction, like, you know, so if you're already starting to go, well, this is what happens in training all the time, and then it doesn't go that way, and then you get thrown off, and you go, wait a second, I thought it always works like that. Well, it doesn't, right, Omar?
No, yeah, I think that's the situation where you have those conversations with your goalkeepers of like, look, this is what we're going to try and show you guys today. These are the plays that we're trying to I guess simulate. And I think, again, once those goalkeepers can have that process in their head, the wheel starts spinning a little bit and say, okay, I've seen this before. Okay, you know what? Like Dallas just said, I've made that save, and in a game, I got to get myself back up. I don't care if there's no rebounders. I got to get myself back up. So again, getting that thought into their head, then creating the session around it, but at the same time too, keeping the environment realistic is, I guess that's the way to go these days.
Yeah, you know, one thing I want to bring up right now with you, Dallas, that we haven't gotten to, and I don't have any tape on it, unfortunately, but I'm sure you've been in this situation many times. Flighted service. I can tell you, being, you know, 4 feet tall, I've got an obstructed view on flighted service almost every single time there's some sort of flighted service. So how does this change at all when it comes to flighted service versus a shot on goal, or is it kind of the same philosophy?
I think they're similar philosophies. I think with flighted service, one of the biggest things is your positioning is going to at least start you off in a position to go and claim a ball, to go and make a play, or to decide to stay on your line. And for me, something I learned in Phoenix that is not something I ever really did before, and I'm actually curious to hear your opinions on it, because I think it's a bit unique. When we were working on crossing, when, you know, there's runners in the box, a ball gets whipped in, it gets floated, whatever it may be. The second the decision is made that I'm not going to come claim this, it was almost, we talk about losing sight of the ball, purposely losing sight of the ball. So I'm watching a cross coming from my left. I see it struck. I know I'm not coming. I'm taking my eyes off the ball, and I'm looking straight in front of me, seeing where the runners are, seeing where my defenders are, and anticipating where this shot may go, which is a unique thing. It's something I'd never done before, something I'd never been coached. You usually watch the ball as it's flighted the whole way in. And that was something I learned in Phoenix, and I took to it. I enjoyed it because the level play is faster, you know, balls are getting whipped in harder, and it almost becomes, you know, I've made my decision. I'm not going to come. How can I now put myself in a position where I'm going to make a save? Where can I see the runners? Where can I see where my defenders are? So I think with flighted balls, it's a little bit more unique. And we talk about losing sight of the ball. This is a purposeful situation of doing it for the benefit of putting yourself in a spot to make a save. And Omar said it earlier, it's working through your progressions, working through, like we were talking about the free kick. So for me, with a ball, you know, flighted in from the wing, first progression is, am I coming to claim this, or am I staying? And then from there, you work backwards. Okay, I'm staying. Now let me scan the field, see where it's going to come.
Dude, I've honestly never heard that before. And I honestly, my head's kind of blown. I kind of want to like cut this as like a clip and put it up online, because like it makes a lot of sense. My only scare or playing devil's advocate on this is that, again, kids take things very literally. So you say, oh, take your eye off the ball. Well, then they start looking, they just start looking at this panoramic view of the field. And now the ball's in the back of the net because they forgot about refinding sight of the ball after you've taken your drop step.
It's absolutely a trained habit. It's something that I was very uncomfortable with doing at first. It seemed counterproductive for me. Not looking at where the ball was essentially going to go. But I think as you work on it, as the game moves faster, it can become a tool. And that's why I said I was curious to get your guys' opinion, because I know that in particular isn't going to be for everyone. That's just another realm of goalkeeping that is worth looking at, worth trying. And for some, it could be very effective. And for me, being just touching 6 foot, not the biggest guy, not commanding as much of the box as maybe a 6'3", 6'4" guy may do, it's a situation I find myself in more because I'm going to, on paper, maybe come and claim less crosses than they may. So something I can add to my toolkit whereas another keeper may not need it.
Well, look, I mean, I drop line all the time because, you know, I'm 5'9" and I can no longer dunk a basketball like I used to. So I find myself dropping line pretty much all the time now. So I'm going to try this next time we're actually able to play competitive soccer again. So Omar, have you ever heard this before? You know, I know you need to get going in the next few minutes, but I would love your take on this.
Talking about with crosses?
Yeah, you're talking about the taking the line of sight off and looking at the runners.
I've never done that before. I think it's again, to each their own. And I think with Dallas, it's worked. And I think it's a way to play to his strengths. And I think a lot of times that's what we need to do. I think, Mike, for you, I think maybe that may have helped. I think for me personally, with crosses, I try to not put myself in a position where, like, I just always knew that if I'm coming, I need to build up some momentum. So I kind of dropped off to my line a good amount. If it was an outswing, I cheated up a little bit, but I always understood I had maybe like 2 to 3 yards of space to create momentum and then really trying to either catch the ball or punch it off outside the 18. So for me, that was my go-to. So I don't know, it depends on what your strengths are, but I've never heard of it, honestly.
Yeah. So Dallas, what we're saying is you're making something up. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you're going to make the Dallas Jaye Book of Goalkeeping, dude.
This is Corey Robertson. He's the goalkeeper coach at Phoenix Rising.
Corey.
Yeah. So if you ever have a conversation with him, he was kind of the catalyst for that with me. And Corey's a shorter guy himself, so you know, might be some similarities there. But he's also a great guy to talk to when it comes to a topic like that.
Well, we got to see Corey train goalkeepers at Phoenix Rising in 110-degree heat. So if he can do that, maybe there's some sort of wisdom that comes out of being in like that intense heat. You know, kind of like being in like those sweat houses or whatever.
It's something different out there. Yeah, it's definitely something different out there.
Well, Omar, I know you need to get going right now. So is there kind of anything that you kind of want to wrap up with before we just finish up right here?
No, not really. I think again, that's the beauty of you know, getting players on here who are current players. So if you guys should now take these conversations and you hear, you know, ideas that Dallas is talking about, self-critique, his own journey, all that stuff. And now when you watch his games or watch the highlights of his games, you have a little bit more context and understanding of who he is as a person, as a goalkeeper. And I think that's the best way to, you know, get to know these young guys who potentially could go to the MLS and beyond. So it starts here, but at the same time now you can actually watch footage of these guys and I guess take notes. And again, for you guys, study.
All right. Well, obviously, guys, you know, you can reach Omar Zini at ProGKAcademy _. You cannot reach him at I don't ever take my eye off the ball _ on Instagram. That's not an Instagram handle. Dallas, before we wrap up right here with you, first off, thanks for taking over an hour. Omar, if you got to take off, we'll finish it off without you. So totally.
Yes, Dallas, pleasure to meet you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Omar. Appreciate you.
We'll chat soon, guys. All right, guys. See you, Mike. Bye.
Later, Omar. All right, and then there were two. It's like Thunderdome, dude, going on here. No, I wanna ask you about what we're talking about with youth goalkeepers, and you know, we touched on it briefly in regards to mistakes, whether it's emotional mistakes, technical mistakes. You brought up the second ball thing, which is a huge pet peeve of mine. Again, it's making sure that you're playing it live, making sure you're playing it live. I've seen a lot of times when a kid does lose sight and it's an obstructed view and they make that save, because it was such a difficult save for them to make, they switch off. They go, oh, I've done my job. They don't do that when they do see the sight. Have you ever experienced that before? Or seen that with young kids?
Yeah, I think it's hard to say in the context of obstructed versus not, a clear view of a ball, but the idea of making what would be a more difficult save, or maybe a save they shouldn't have made. Those worldies that you pull off and almost you as a goalkeeper don't even know how you just did that. Where your knee-jerk reaction right after isn't, let me get up, let me make another save. So I think that's the only thing I can say to that is a 90-minute game, a training session, whatever it may be, the fires are not put out, the job is not done. You keep the ball out of the back of the net once, but the job's not done until the whistle blows. Yes, you find relief in, you push a ball, goes out for a corner kick, you have a second to regroup and get yourself organized, or the ball gets cleared. But if you're not holding the ball, someone else has it, and there's a chance it could be coming your way. So anytime you make a save, or you're just in the run of play where you may be called upon, even if you don't think you might be called upon, you have to be alert and ready to go. And that is the difficult thing, to stay switched on, tuned in, alert for 90 plus minutes. It is difficult. Pros fight with it. Kids with probably smaller attention spans than an experienced pro fight with it. So it's a habit, it's learned, and it's something that for me, I try to find, I don't want to call it a mantra, but if I find my mind slipping in a direction, whatever it may be during a game, I'll just little quick phrase to myself in my head to just bring myself back into the moment. Okay, and it can be, sometimes you sound like a broken record to your defenders. Sometimes I'm yelling at my defender something just to keep myself tuned in. Whether it be, balls all the way down the field, it's been there for a while. Hey, keep our shape at the back, center back, stay connected. Like, they know that, they're probably doing it. For me, it's staying engaged while also them, they're hearing my voice. They know I'm engaged back here. They got to be minding their P's and Q's as well.
I do that as well. I do that as well when I'm playing, and a lot of it just has to do with the simple fact that I'm saying it in my head, but when I actually verbalize it, for whatever reason, it just seems more specific and focused than if it's just kind of in my head. Last thing, Dallas, before we go right here, obviously, first off, congrats on all the success you've been having, man. I mean, I've known about you since you were a little, okay, I guess I can't really do it on Zoom here, but you know what I mean, like a little guy right here, dude. And I mean, Nate spoke the world of you, throughout your entire journey, and spoke about how hard of a worker. I mean, and you're just kind of a testament that, like, if it's something that you want bad enough and you're willing to put the work in, like, you can make your dreams possible. So, I think you're an inspiration to a lot of young goalkeepers out there. I think a lot of young goalkeepers also need to see that the road isn't not necessarily, a linear road, that the road can have curves and everything like that. And you have to just, stay the course. If anybody out there wants to reach out to you, where's the best place for them to connect with you?
Best place, Instagram, and Twitter as well. Both are public. But I should know my handles. At Daljay, DALJAYE, for both is what they are. But yeah, I welcome conversations. I love chatting goalkeeping, whether it be with kids who just have a question, things like that. So I'm an open book when it comes to that stuff. One thing I want to touch on real quick is actually a kid who reached out when I was playing in Phoenix. Kid Dylan Mapston, goalkeeper out in Arizona, younger kid, has done a fantastic thing putting together Keepers Care, which is an organization he formed as a young kid. And we're actually beginning this month. This is the second year I participated, but it's a campaign called Clean Sheets Against Cancer. It's Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm pledging money. I think I'm doing $5 a start, $10 a clean sheet, and $1 for every save during this month's matches. There's several goalkeepers across the USL and MLS that are participating. So anyone who supports the cause, supports goalkeeping, you know, you can match my donation. You can just go on and donate. He's got a GoFundMe. It's an awesome thing he's doing, and he's a stud young goalkeeper too. That's the best part about it. He's a kid I'm hoping, you know, to see his name popping up when I'm done playing down the road. But you see his name popping up, and I think that's going to be the case because he's got a heck of a work ethic, and it shows with the character he has, you know, putting together the things he's put together.
Absolutely, you know, and shout out to the Mabsons. You know, they've housed us when we've gone to MLS preseason for a couple of years, you know, and helped us out in regards to, you know, making the connections in the area and putting together. We've done 2 clinics down there through Keepers Care for Kids and participate in the toy drives and all that sort of stuff. So anybody out there
That's
who's
awesome.
not
Yeah,
familiar,
I didn't know you had that connection. Even better.
Yeah. So
the
you know,
goalkeeping world is small.
Exactly. And shout out to Zach Lubin down there. I know he's involved as well too with the organization. No, I mean, it's really great stuff. It also puts things a lot of times in perspective, you know, when you can utilize, you know, the community, you know, for other things other than goalkeeping, you know, and I think that's so important. I mean, shout out to like somebody like Jamie Campbell as well too, you know, up here, well, not up here, down here in Cal South. I'm so talking to you, I was thinking up here like Cal North, you know, doing things such as that as well too. I just lost my train of thought because we were talking about all these wonderful kids right there. And then I saw the Revs goalkeeper coach, you know, come on the feed right there. And I was like, oh, dude, is he spying? Come on, the game was last week. Doesn't need to get any more information. Remember, guys, contact at Inside the 18. That's the number 18media.com. If you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion. Shout out to everybody who's recommended Obstructed View. It's something definitely we've wanted to touch on, and we were trying to find the right person to touch on it. Did not know about the situation against the Revs one. Sorry about that.
Learning moment, not just for me, but for all of us, is the best part about it.
Also, shout out to Alex Blackburn. Alex, you're welcome on the show anytime as well, too. I know we were trying to set that up when we were at convention. And, you know, so anytime you want to reach out, you know, do that. I've heard only phenomenal things about Alex from yourself and from Klinovsky and everybody else. So, you know, obviously you're in good hands over there. At Goalkeeper Podcast, I think I already just said that right there. In the show notes, we will have all the Keepers Care for Kids information. Dallas, if you have a little blurb that, you know, you want to share or whatever, and we can post a little clip or whatever, let me know, and we can get that as well going too. So
absolutely. No, this has been a pleasure, and the fact that we can kind of tie it with what Dylan's doing and Keeper Cares for Kids and everything is, you know, giving back as using the game of soccer and using goalkeeping to give back. I mean, what more can you ask for? So it's an awesome thing.
Especially during this time period right now, when a lot of people are in, whether it's financial or health situations, you know, right now. So
absolutely.
I encourage just all the young goalkeepers out there right now listening, you know, see what you can do for your community. You know, maybe use some of this time where you're not allowed to, you know, train with your team or whatever, and use it for something productive. All right, guys, that's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later.